Hi everyone, welcome to Học tiếng Anh với Joseph, where we build vocabulary and practice pronunciation through reading. Continuing with The Cat in the Box, A History of Science in 100 Experiments. Today we read story number 44, Prevention is Better Than Cure. John Snow, will read about him. He passed away rather at the young age of 45. The scientific development of medicine proceeded rapidly in the mid-19th century, with one of the key developments coming from a combination of observation and experiment made by a London-based physician, John Snow. Snow came from the north of England, where in 1831, at the age of 18, he helped out during a cholera outbreak. It was after he moved to London and qualified in medicine that another cholera outbreak in 1854 led him to an understanding of the way the disease spread. This was a few years before the work of Louis Pasteur pointed the way to an understanding of germs, and it was widely believed that diseases such as cholera were spread by bad air or miasmas. The cholera outbreak of 1854 centered on the Soho region of London around Broad Street, since renamed Broadwick Street. It began on August 31st, and within 3 days, 127 people had died. Although most of the local population fled the area, by September 10th, the death toll had risen to 500. In total, 616 people died. Snow had doubts about the miasma idea and decided to identify the source of the outbreak by interviewing local residents and plotting on the map the homes of the victims. This showed that the cholera outbreak was concentrated around Broad Street, where there was a pump from which the residents drew their water. Snow studied the water from the pump using a microscope and analyzed it chemically, but couldn't find nothing that might have caused the outbreak. Nevertheless, he was convinced that the water from the pump was somehow responsible for the cholera, and he persuaded the parish authorities to remove the handle from the pump so that it could no longer be used. As he wrote, with regard to the deaths occurring in the locality belonging to the pump, there were 61 instances in which I was informed that the deceased persons used to drink the pump water from Broad Street either constantly or occasionally. There has been no particular outbreak or prevalence of cholera in this part of London except among the persons who were in the habit of drinking the water of the above-mentioned pump well. I had an interview with the Board of Guardians of St. James Parish on the evening of the 7th and represented the above circumstances to them. In consequence of what I said, the handle of the pump was removed on the following day. The outbreak declined, although as Snow himself acknowledged it might have been past its peak anyway. There is no doubt that the mortality was much diminished, as I said before, by the flight of the population, which commenced soon after the outbreak, but the attacks had so far diminished before the use of the water was stopped, that it is impossible to decide whether the well still contained the cholera poison in an active state or whether from some cause the water had become free from it. But support for Snow's hypothesis came from other observations. A nearby workhouse accommodated more than 500 paupers, none of whom suffered from cholera. The workhouse had its own well, and workers at a nearby brewery who were allowed free beer and never drank water from the pump were also free from the disease. We know now that fermentation kills the cholera bacillus. Snow later showed that there was an increased incidence of cholera among people who depended on water supplied by the Southwark and Vauxhall Waterworks Company, which was taking water from the sewage-polluted River Thames, but pump in Broad Street was connected to a well that has been contaminated by sewage from an old cesspit just under a meter away. Snow has become known as the founder of epidemiology. But his idea of mapping the cholera outbreak to locate its source may have come from a book by a West Country physician, Thomas Shapter, discussing an outbreak of cholera in Exeter in 1831. Shapter maps the outbreak essentially without commenting on the possible significance of the map, while Snow used a similar map as a tool. Snow was also a pioneer in the development of anesthesia on a proper scientific basis. He was one of the first physicians to calculate proper dosages for the use of ether and chloroform, rather than guessing and hoping for the best, which made the use of anesthetics in surgery and childbirth safer and more reliable. He personally used chloroform to ease the pain of Queen Victoria when she gave birth to the last two of her 9 children, Leopold in 1853 and Beatrice in 1857. She wrote in her diary, "Dr. Snow gave up that blessed chloroform, and the effect was soothing, quieting, and delightful beyond measure." Snow's only comment was, "Her Majesty is a model patient." Moving on to the vocabulary section, proceeded rapidly. Cholera outbreak. Miasmas or bad air. Persuade. Deceased. Always ed at the end. Deceased. It's different from disease. Deceased là những người đã mất. Disease là các cái bệnh. Mortality rate. Diminish. Fermentation, lên men. Fermentation. Cholera bacillus. Cesspit, cesspool. Epidemiology. Epidemiology. So, epidemiologist is very hard, even for me too. So we have to practice more and more. Epidemiologist. Chloroform. Anesthetics in surgery. Anesthetics in surgery. If you have made it this far, my heartfelt congratulations. You have a very strong will to learn. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And as usual, I will see you in the next story. Bye for now.